The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my circuits!
Everybody loves Hypno Toad.
Scary dog!
Pearson and Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is your mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And this is TV Party Tonight. I forgot how to do this show, Jesse. I had like the whole intro, and I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, our favorite show. Okay, take two.
There we go. Okay, yeah.
And tonight, our favorite show is Heels, brought to you by the good people at O'Malley Inc., Cool Dog, LBI Entertainment, Paramount Television Studios, and Lionsgate Television. Heels is an American drama television series about pro wrestling, created by Michael Waldron, that premiered on August 15, 2021 on Starz. In November of 2021, the series was renewed for a second season, which premiered on July 28th, 2023, which is what we'll be talking about tonight. And then in September of 23, the series was canceled after 2 seasons. Two brothers and rivals, one a villain or heel in pro wrestling, the other a hero or a face, play out scripted matches as they war over the fate of their late father's wrestling promotion and vie for the national attention in small town Backassward, Georgia. And from Backassward, Ohio,
That's where it's at.
ladies and gentlemen, he's a tweener. You don't know if he's a face or a heel. DTA,
Right.
motherfuckers. It's the Condarned. I just now saw that. Well done.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, in his old promotion, he was known as Juicy J, Jesse Starcher. How do you do, sir?
Oh, Mark Radulich. So glad that I talked you into bringing this out of the culling
That's right.
in order to discuss season 2 of Heels.
Yeah, Ronnie and I did this. Ronnie has been wanting to talk wrestling with me for a couple of years now. And he was, and this was during one of his phases where he was like hot to podcast. So he was like, this is perfect. This is a season of television. It's about pro wrestling. It's Stephen Amell from Arrow. This is all the things. And if you go back in the archives, it's from the video days. We did it at some point in the back half of 2021. We had a really good conversation about it. Had some disagreements about the finale, which we'll address momentarily. But for the most part, Ronnie and I enjoyed the first season a lot. And we had planned to do season 2. But you're right. It did not survive the great social culling of 2022. But you, Jesse, my love, you do not have to talk me into anything. All you have to do is say, Radulich, I wanna. And I go, absolutely. So we were supposed to talk vinyl. I kicked that into next year because Jesse was like, hey, I would rather talk Heel season 2. And I went, I'll rearrange my entire schedule for you. A year's worth of podcast for Jesse Starcher. Special Jesse Starcher. So, Jesse, tell the people how you came upon Heels and, like the whole thing that led you to asking me, like, had we done a review before? Is there any interest in reviewing season 2?
Right. So, okay. I remember you guys discussing it and of course hearing a little bit about, a little bit of banter. I think during the year it came out, Stephen Amell was doing some stuff with WWE, I think.
Yeah, keep talking and I'll quick look it up.
I feel like he did something with them during like either right before the first season. But anyway, so I didn't really have much of a desire to immediately watch it.
Hmm.
Uh, Number one, it's a Starz product, so I don't have Starz. I could definitely hop on the high seas and get it if I wanted to, but I wasn't making that effort. Um, it then drops on Netflix, and Netflix has been, they have some programming that's geared towards some wrestling fans. You know about the Vince McMahon documentary that's on there.
Yep.
If you've watched Wrestlers, I think is what it's called. I think it's just called Wrestlers, where they
Yeah,
they
I
take
saw something like that earlier when I was doing the prep for this.
it's a focus on Al Snow's promotion, which I'm pretty sure is I cannot remember what the promotion's called. I know it's fairly decent sized promotion for where it's at, and it's fun to watch Al Snow, this little documentary on what's going on down there. But
Mhm.
anyway, Heels hits Netflix, and I was like, what a good time to kind of maybe start this up and see what it's all about. So me and the wife were looking for something. I started it. I was just looking here while you were doing the intro. We started it October 5th,
Mhm.
2024. So early, a couple months ago, we started the first season.
Yep.
And apparently, we whipped through that quickly.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh, it's a
within-
breezy watch.
yeah, you're talking 8 episodes a season.
Mhm.
So the first season, when we watched that, I was like, okay, I'm hopping into the second season, watched most of it, and then I realized that you guys had talked about it, and I know you did a podcast on it.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to both these podcasts once I'm done watching the second season. Oh, turns out there's only one. Turns out there's only one podcast out there, and I was left high and dry. So yeah, that's kind of what I was drawn to. I really didn't know what I was going to get. Like I knew it was going to be kind of drama, and I really didn't know how they were going to handle what the storyline was going to be. I had no idea what it was going to be like going into it. And I was pleasantly surprised. We'll just put it that way.
It's great. Heels is a great show. So real quick, just to kind of double back on what you said about Stephen Amell, I didn't want to interrupt you.
Sure.
But his stuff with the WWE was in 2015.
Okay, so that was a little bit before then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why was he doing that then?
He campaigned for a guest appearance on Raw in 2015. He wrestled Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam when he was doing the Stardust thing.
I remember that.
He did a stint on Raw in a tag match, and then he was awarded a Slammy in December of the same year. He worked Ring of Honor in 2017. He was at All In, and where he was defeated by Christopher Daniels, the Fallen Angel. And then he did some work in All Elite Wrestling in 2020. He made an appearance at Revolution where he accompanied Cody Rhodes alongside the Rhodes family for his match against MJF.
Okay. All right.
There
Well,
you go.
yeah, obviously not related to the WWE in any way when this was airing.
No.
He was with some rival promotions. Well, anyway.
He's on. So he left. So after Heels was canceled, he's actually doing a show next year called Suits LA, where he'll be in a main role. So there you go. And of course, he was
Good for
Arrow
him.
for like a million years and did all the crossovers
Yes.
and stuff like that.
Yes.
So
Yeah, so
wanna-
2014, 2015 would have been in the heart of Arrow, if I remember correctly, because
mhm.
Arrow started before Flash, I think. So, or maybe it was the other way. No, it was the Arrowverse.
Right. So let's talk about season 1 for just a little bit, and then we'll get into season 2.
Okay.
I really just want to ask you about, because I re-listened back to it, and that the whole thing with season 1 was because, and it does lead into season 2, because season 2 is sort of like Stephen Amell's character Jack Spade, his redemption story, kind of.
Mhm.
It's basically he spent all of season 1 trying to be basically his dad. And he was like, nobody can help me with wrestling. This is my vision. And he was kind of doing a little dirtiness, a little underhandedness with his brother, which caused his brother to like freak out and leave. Basically, because his brother was sort of, a ego inflated jackass, and Jack was like, well, it's my job to kind of teach you a lesson, but he doesn't bother to tell him that. So instead, he causes a situation where he like shoots on him in the ring, if I remember correctly, and the kid his brother kind of has like a breakdown about it, and then they're doing
the screw job.
Yeah, they're doing things behind the scene to where like Jack's giving people like tissue paper to throw at him.
Yeah, right.
Stuff like that. And finally, and he, and the wife the whole time is like, you're a good man, Jack Spade, but you're not being a good man.
You're not making good choices.
Right. And so finally she's like, tell him the truth. And he does. And his brother loses his fucking mind. So we also have from The Wire season 2, Frank Zabatka, who is Chris
Bauer,
yeah, who plays Wild Bill Hancock, who's kind of like a cross between Ric Flair and Terry Funk.
Oh,
like if they had a baby, that if they had a baby and that baby developed the sort of the linguistics of superstar Billy Graham, that's what it would sound like. It's just a great character. So they have him in the promotion, and there's like a match with I think the three of them. They're doing a ladder match for the title, and because now because the truth has come out, and his brother, having not the coping skills, just they start shooting on each other, and Wild Bill Hancock shits his pants, as we all are
so
prone to do.
great.
You ever sneeze and shit your pants? I do frequently. You ever cough and shit your pants? It's just the worst. Anyway, he has the best line about that. He was just like, I have defecated on myself, and now I must lay here and die. So, like, somebody from the ECW-esque promotion in Orlando, like, tries to like storm the ring. Wild Bill hits him, and that's I think where he shits his pants. So he's kind of out of the match. And these two idiots are like killing each other. Nobody at this point, and this is what I said to Ronnie at the time, nobody winning that match would have made the crowd happy.
Right.
And so a character in the show, who the character's name is Crystal, is this like 90-pound girl who's trained as a wrestler, but because she's a 90-pound girl and there are no other girls in this promotion, she's used as a valet. So she takes off her bunny ears and she climbs a ladder and she claims the title.
It was kind of hard to swallow at the time because I was like, who's going to believe this? But where the hell are they going to go from here? What is going on? Who's going into business for themselves? And
like I think I said to Ronnie at the time, it's not believable that she can beat these two guys in a fight. It's not believable anything that they did, but I'm accepting it because she did essentially a crowd appeasing thing.
Right.
By being the only person left out there the crowd had any sympathy for. The Wild Bill couldn't do anything. He shit his pants, and if he had climbed over with shit in his pants, they'd have been throwing toilet paper at him. These two guys just punched each other's teeth out. Nobody had any sympathy for them. So she took the ball and ran with it, which is where season 2 picks up. But I just wanted to get your opinion of anything I said or Ronnie said about that, or what you saw in general.
Oh, it's been a while since I listened to the podcast too, so a lot of that stuff you're bringing up kind of rings some bells. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what I took away from season 1 is just how there's a lot of obstacles in Jack's way to try and get a promotion, a rinky-dink promotion like this to work,
right?
And also to try and either, I wouldn't say make his brother understand why he did what he did, but also kind of keep that a secret. That's a lot of the reason,
right?
His
wife leaves him over it. Not permanently, temporarily, but she's like, I married a good man, and you're not being a good man right now, and I'm not going to be with you while you're going to continue to be Satan.
Right, right. And Ace Spade, I mean, he was, my gosh, the minute he broke Bobby Penn's leg, I was like, who's going to want to work with this guy ever again?
Yeah.
Who is going to want to work with him? Oh, turns out he's the brother of the guy that owns the promotion, so this doesn't surprise me. But there's a lot of character development that's going on, especially with Ace. He's got to deal with the fact that, okay, he had this opportunity and his brother took it away from him, just like that. So that's a lot of the drama.
And a lot of the behind the scenes stuff with him was that he was Dad's favorite son. He was, he was the overall athlete. He was supposed to go on to play professional sports, not be a struggling wrestler. And so there's a lot of animus between the two. It's important to bring up at this time that their father, and this was set up in season 1, but it gets dealt with a lot in season 2. Father killed himself. This promotion was a sinking ship. This was a guy who I guess had the stuff to get into WCW around the time of Nitro, during the Monday Night War, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But like he gets an attempt at a cup of coffee with WCW, and it doesn't happen for him, and so he comes back home and he tries to make Georgia a thing, and that doesn't happen either, and they're mired in debt, and finally he was seeing no way out and no way forward, and nobody loves him. He shot himself in the fucking head.
On his fucking porch.
Right on his porch, yeah. And then Ace is the one that found him, but then like a Von Erich, he's just fucking sitting in the yard, and Jack's the one that has to deal with it.
It's bad.
And Ace was there to hug the mom, but Jack was the one that kind of had to keep it all together. And so there's a lot of like unprocessed trauma that the show deals with from that. And so it's sort of the explanation for why Jack's character is the way that he is. So season 2 is a lot of Jack making amends to his wife, making amends because every decision he made, he in season 1 he punched out the promoter
of FDW, Florida Dystopia.
Yeah, I actually like that character a lot, and the actor playing him
I do
fantastic.
Too. Yes, yes.
Real quick, but he's one of my favorite characters in the show. Mike O'Malley. Mike O'Malley hosted the early 1990s children's game show Get the Picture on Nickelodeon. He's great in this. His line delivery is fucking spot on. He's just so good to the point where like I know he's supposed to be the villain in the show, but like I almost always saw his point of view.
That's the thing. Like they wrote him in this season as if he is not. Well, I shouldn't say in the season, in the show, you really can't afford a lot of blame on the guy for trying to run a business and also be successful. And I think they do a good job, like making you go, well, I kind of agree with what this dude is doing.
Like he tried to poach Ace from Jack, and it would be like Eric poaches Mike Awesome from ECW, a real thing that happened.
All right.
And like, and in real life, fucking Paul Heyman punched out Eric Bischoff.
Right. Eric Bischoff, right. In the ring.
Right.
Mind you.
Yeah, shoot punch in the ring. So he's suing Jack. And
he's suing his ass.
Yeah, either do a co-promotion with me that that brings my character some sort of closure in a positive way. Because what you did, like his whole thing with the lawyer, I know, again, it's written as if that's supposed to be like, oh, you dastardly villains, but it's like, no, everything the lawyer said and everything that Gully said was true. It was like, you damaged my intellectual property. You damaged my character. You punched me for real in the ring. One, that's a battery. Let's start there. You broke the law. But two, you've also damaged in perpetuity my character. That's intellectual property. You're now costing me money. I have every right to sue you. And I'm sitting there like, you do. I'm with you, sir.
I think that character is the main reason why I was like, man, I want to hear your guys' take on Gully and what happened there. And the great thing is in season 2, now I get to talk about it, but I was wanting to hear what you guys thought of that character because I came away with the same sentiment.
Yeah.
I thought Jack is getting off light. to be honest, because of
Yeah.
everything that he did. Yeah, legitimately, any other person would probably sue him into oblivion if they wanted to destroy his promotion. That's the thing. He's brought in to the show to be like, okay, I want to run you out of business, blah blah blah. But then you start to realize that that's not exactly what he wants to do.
Right.
He's giving Jack an olive branch and saying, let's be successful together.
Right.
I might go over this time. And you're going to have to put me over because you already, punched me in the face in front of my own fans, in front of my own company.
Again,
so
to put it in business terms, he damaged his intellectual property. It would be
Right.
like if you ran around Walt Disney World and drew cocks in Mickey Mouse's face every time. Like you can't do that. You
Right.
just can't.
Right. And every time you see Gully on the screen,
Mhm.
he is. It seems to me like even though he's like, okay, hey, come work for me,
Mhm.
he's affording people an opportunity to make more money
That's
and also, it benefit them in the
right.
long run.
Well, Jack's whole I don't want to get too much on this because I'm still trying to set up the season. But I brought it up because it's on the list of 100 things Jack has to make amends for. So,
Yeah.
he has to make amends for punching Gully in the face. He has to make amends for screwing over his brother and emotionally manipulating him. He
Yeah.
has to he has to make amends with the people at Duffy World League or whatever the fuck it's called.
His
DWL.
wife, DW.
Yeah, his wife. There's so many people that he hurt in that first season trying to be as tough as his dad was, that he spends a lot of this season trying to do right by everybody. And like I have to say, Stephen Amell, for a television actor, I don't think always gets maybe the credit that he's due, because he was in Arrow, and Arrow was a soapy and ridiculous show. But again, a lot of television actors that never make it into the talkies are always regarded as like B level, second tier kind of actors. Like you're not really the best kind of actor there can be until you've done the talkies, until you've been in major motion pictures, is what's said. So there's a lot of people that just sort of exist on TV.
Mhm.
And I think he has the chops. He's got better chops than I think he's given credit for. He does a really good job of steadying that character and making you feel like this is a guy who's trying so hard to be everything to everybody without losing himself. And like he has an interaction with his wife in the second season where he's like, I'm not going to keep asking you to come home because clearly that's a waste of my time. You'll come when you're ready, but I am doing the best job that I can. And if you don't want to acknowledge that, there's nothing more I can do here. And it's like, I fucking feel you.
Mhm.
And then it all, and I don't want to get into the ending now because that's its own separate conversation, but it all leads to that conclusion where, he's trying to do the right thing. And he thinks like, I've got this great idea. I've always got great ideas. It's not what we booked. And it's not, it's not something I've been ever successful at, but this is my moment.
Mhm.
And we'll talk about it. So, all right. So let's get into season 2. Season 2 picks up where season 1 left off. Crystal grabbed the title and Ace leaves the promotion. Rooster has defected to Orlando. And the wife and the kid have left Stephen Amell. So he's in the house by himself. The first thing we can deal with is how they dealt with the wrestling stuff this season, how they dealt with Crystal. There's a focus on, in this very small, isolated area, there's a conversation about women's wrestling and what does it all mean. So basically, I'll say what happens and then we can talk about it. They basically do another match where, like, they go like, you can't just grab the belt and just incite you're the
Unfortunately,
winner.
right.
Like that's ridiculous. So they have like their version of Jack Tunney, vacate the belt, and they do like an actual match, and they decide they're gonna put her over for real, and then somebody makes the point of saying, she's 100-pound girl. There's only so many times we can do this. What is she gonna do? Be Bob Holly? Well, I'll just give me the belt and I'll beat everybody.
Mhm. Right.
Solid booking, Bobby. So one of my favorite stupid lines in wrestling. I'll just give me the belt and I'll beat everybody. Okay.
Believable.
Yeah. So since they're not just gonna give Crystal the belt and she beats everybody, they have to kind of book their way out of this now. Because they have a bona fide star in her, but she's not. She's not a 6 foot tall man.
No.
She's a 5 foot tall dainty girl. And at
Mhm.
some point, I will shut up and let you talk, but I used
Oh,
to
you're
do
fine.
a podcast with what's his face, the guy I was doing the independent wrestling stuff with, who's a friend of Eric and all them.
Oh, I
yeah.
know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Shoot. Yeah. He's
Yeah, him. Good,
Yeah.
good old what's his name. But he
It's going to
would.
come to me in a second, I
Yeah,
guarantee it.
I'll look it up while you're talking. But we, in the few times that we did TV parties for independent wrestling stuff, we were the indie ciders. He would
Nice.
he would go on and on and on about mixed wrestling and how like these diminutive girls would go over on these guys, and I would be like, this is the drizzling shits, why are we doing this? And he was like, why? These are superstars. Why? And I'm like, because you're living in a world that isn't biologically true. I don't care how at some point. And here's the trick, this is really what I'm trying to get at. Pro wrestling works when it makes you believe it's real. When Daniel Bryan beat Batista and Randy Orton at WrestleMania 30, and I cried like a child, it was because they told me a story that was believable. This guy who is smaller than Batista and Randy Orton, but not so small he can't defend himself, fought the company, fought the corporation, fought two big, powerful championship wrestlers, fought through all this adversity and won the title. It was a moment. It was a believable moment. It was a moment that I could suspend my disbelief. That it was a moment that this fictional world made me believe was real. That's when wrestling works. That's when it's at its best. And their point with Crystal is if you just give her the title and she beats everybody, it isn't believable anymore. At some point, people are just like, this is ridiculous. And you're going to lose people. And then you've taken a star and you've killed her all in the same moment. So they have to take the title off of her, and they have to they want to capitalize on her stardom, but they don't want to have her keep wrestling dudes. It looks ridiculous.
Yeah, you need a women's division.
So they have to create a women's division. So what did you think of the way they handled the resolution from season 1, the finale, and Crystal's character and all of that?
Yeah, like I said, I think at the end of season 1, you backed yourself into a corner. How are you going to write yourself out of this? And supposedly,
You're
Jack
talking
is
narratively, right? Not like within
right
in the wrestling.
not the show itself. I'm talking about
right.
the booking here as
Okay.
for the fictional wrestling company.
Right.
And Jack is known as this like great writer too. Like
right.
So he's so well respected.
Sorry, Gully's line. You're not writing Faulkner. Just put me over.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I get you, brother. I get you.
But yeah, so I'm waiting to see how they're going to do this, because number one, it's got to be believable to the audience that's watching the show, and for us to go, okay, the audience buys into that. And yeah, I think it's fine. They go in there and they're like, okay, hey, look, we need to acknowledge this fact, and we strip you of the title, and then we've got to give her the opportunity to become a women's competitor here and prove herself that way. So that's fine. I'm okay with that. They bring in AJ Lee, don't they? I mean, because now we have CM Punk and AJ Lee on this show.
That's right. CM Punk was an ongoing guest star in the show, and his character is actually really funny. But they have AJ Lee come in as an independent girl wrestler to work with Crystal.
Right. And there's some great moments, because now Crystal has to really she went from a fan slash valet to just kind of learning the ropes a little bit, and obviously having to fight her way into actually becoming a wrestler. She had Willie kind of keeping her down a little bit, get out of the dressing room and all that. And now she's finally become a wrestler. You can't just go immediately grab the title and become like this great wrestler. You still have a lot to work with. You have a lot to work to learn.
Could you imagine that? Like, Roman Reigns is having a ladder match with Seth Rollins, for the title, and Paul Heyman just fucking goes into business for himself. He just fucking cries all that. It's like, ladies and gentlemen, I am Paul Heyman, and I am they'd kill him. They would take him in the back and beat him to death.
They would. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to watch the David Arquette documentary.
I have. It was a
nothing
while
could kill
back,
David
but I
Arquette.
did, yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of reminds me, like, he was shot into that moment, having that championship, and now of course 20, 30 years later he feels he has something to prove. Well, Crystal, she's she shoots herself. She has way more ability than David Arquette ever did, but she still has to kind of prove herself to everybody. So yeah, bringing the women's division in here, and she's still kind of, she's trying to learn the ropes. There's a moment that I clearly remember when she goes back and she sees AJ Lee like taping herself up, and she's talking about like, just, you got to understand what the consequences are being a wrestler long term. And she starts, like, I think she starts listing the injuries that she had, and I think that sobers Crystal up a little bit to understand that it's not going to be like you'll enjoy it now that you're young, but when you start doing this long term, it's going to be something you have to.
You know what's funny? Hulk Hogan's talked about that. Of all people, of all the lies Hulk Hogan has told, he actually talked about, it's like, had I known that, because again, before the WWE and their ridiculous touring schedule of the 80s, where they worked 355 days a year, and twice ridiculous. On Sundays, he was like, I don't know if my finisher would have been jump up and land on my ass,
every time,
every night,
for
a decade. It's like these guys have, like, Roddy Piper had a hip replacement, Hogan had hip replacement surgery. These guys, assuming they're not, I mean, and you think about like the Attitude Era, how many guys doing flippity doos,
right?
And stupid shit landed on their fucking heads and needed neck fusion surgery,
right?
Like Edge has had 1-2 retirements due to injuries, and he's a young guy. Like, when Triple H talks about like the Attitude Era, I'm linking this back to the show, but when Triple H talks about the Attitude Era, he was like, we were on the verge of killing somebody in the ring, and I don't mean like dropping them off the ceiling in the fucking Kiel Center, with a harness. I mean like Jeff Hardy's fucking jumping off 12-foot ladders onto his head. Like, how many more times is this going to happen before we lose a guy in the ring?
Right.
More on that at the end of the show. So. Like Steve Austin, I mean, just in a fucking sit-out pile driver, almost lost his entire career before it even started in the WWE. How many of these guys, like Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle, who won with a broken freaking neck, has had how many surgeries and got addicted to how many drugs, trying to keep up with that schedule, trying, do the shit that they did.
Right.
And that's the speech that AJ Lee gives to her. It's just like, this is fun now. And somebody else says it to Crystal too. It's like, you want to be in the main event? Wrestle for 30 minutes. That's 30 minutes of bumps. That's, if you don't know what a bump is, for those of you that might be like, casuals that watch this, it's like, oh, what's Mark doing tonight? What's he talking about? What's Jesse doing? And you have no idea what the show is or wrestling. You just like the sounds of our voices, which we thank you. A bump is you fall on your back. That's a bump. You fall on your face or you fall on your back. When I trained to wrestle, you had to literally throw your legs up in the air and land on your shoulder blades and tuck your head, because if you didn't tuck your head, you hit the back of your head.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah. So fall on your back for 30 minutes. Also you have to have cardio for 30 minutes. I mean, like even boxers get a minute rest in between rounds. Wrestling is one of the most like cardio intense sports or physical entertainments there is. Having done it, the late Larry Zonka also trained as a wrestler, not the Steelers player, but Larry Zonka, 401 wrestling. And he was saying, like, we would both talk about the little bit that we did talk about how nothing quite prepares you to be a pro wrestler. The Rock has said it. The Rock went from playing pro football ish to being a wrestler, and it was a completely different training. And the amount of, you talk about, like, wrestlers talk about, you take this to get you up, you take this to bring you down, you take this to get to the, you take this to mask the injury so you can get to the next show. And that's what AJ Lee says to Crystal. It's like, you think this is fun in games. You think, like, because you climbed the top of the ladder and had this big moment for yourself that you're going to be this big time wrestler. It's like, can you do this every day? Can you sustain the amount of damage you're going to accumulate over the years of doing this? And she has a very sobering moment for her, which I think the actress who plays Crystal was, I think she handled it quite well.
Yeah.
Her name is Kelly Berglund.
Yeah, she does a fantastic job. Yeah, I mean, she's number one in the hearts of everybody in Duffy, that's for sure. She's very
Mhm.
popular enough to, just like you said, kind of acquire the eye of Gully, who would love to have her down there. Not
Mhm.
only that, I mean, we also have the streaming services that have now got their eye on these wrestling
Yes.
leagues, and she is definitely somebody that they are paying attention to as well.
Yeah, that's a subplot of this thing. Is once they resolve the stuff between Gully and Jack, which I guess we can talk about both things now. So, like I said, Gully got punched out by Jack when he tried to poach Ace, and he came back to him and he was like, "Yeah, that's not gonna fly." So he's like, "Let's put on a co-promotion," and basically everybody tells Jack, "You don't have a choice.
Mhm.
You want to fight him in court and lose, or you want, or just put over, or just do the stupid co-promotion already and get over yourself." So he does.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, like, they gave the Jack Spade character a lot more than I think he would have gotten in real life. Because could you imagine, Vince McMahon punches out Eric Bischoff, and then they're
Yeah.
like, okay, and now Vince write the show, or have Triple H write the show. Like, there's no fucking way that happens. But there it was. He was like, your writing is good. Let's just write, as long as you put us over in the end, write the show.
Yeah.
I got to bring it up just because it goes into that storyline. So Ace left. He went into the woods to live deliberately, literally.
He did too.
and then he has an accident. He gets out of the accident, but then like he has an incident where like he hits on a girl, and the girl's like, "What? I paid. God, this touched my soul and hurt me." He's like, "What? Because I was nice to you and paid attention to you, that means I'm into you? Be better, man."
Yeah.
Heard,
Yeah,
nice lady. Heard.
Ace has so much to learn and grow from, because when we first meet him in season 1, I remember that first episode thinking like, oh, this is why this show's called Heels, because this guy is a face and he is legitimately a heel shitbag in real life.
Yeah.
He needs to learn how to be a heel. But obviously what they end up doing, he kind of goes that route, and then all of a sudden he still wants it. But no matter what, for some reason, Ace doesn't understand, like, being a heel he's so natural at it, he would be great. But no, I've got to be a face. So anyway, I guess that kind of
validation and attention.
Exactly. It supports that mentally he has a lot to mature with. He needs to mature a lot. So this is that moment you're talking about is another one of those moments where you start to see, okay, wham, slap in the face. Okay, Ace, are you going to learn from this? Are you going to take something from this? And you see in season 2, he starts to learn from a lot of the BS that he's put out there. Like, okay, well, shoot, maybe I am somebody that needs to change. But anyway, go ahead and continue.
So he basically comes. So after having learned some life lessons, he says it at one point. He was like, "All I ever did was sports, and sports gave me an inflated sense of my own self-worth and ego, because everyone told me how great I was. You take the sports away from me, I'm not even a person anymore." And it's like so he's emotionally stunted. He's emotionally like really stupid, and he kind of has to quick, fast, in a hurry mature. And so he kind of comes back, and he was like, this is his redemption story. He was like, I want to be a better person. I don't want to be a bag of shit. And I need to go back and make right with my brother. And so he pitches basically like it's a version of Sting, where he's like coming in from the fucking rafters, and he's dressed all in black and all this other stuff. And they work the Condemned into the storyline with Gully and the what was it, Florida wrestling dystopia?
Florida dystopia.
Okay. In any case, they work him into that story. They work him into a thing with Rooster. And it's fine. From that point on, basically it's a lot of Ace's storyline is, I just want to be better, and I want to cooperate. And everybody in this show, like Wild Bill Hancock, Ace, Jack, all talk like the way Neil Fallon sings in Clutch. They all talk like they're preaching the ministry, and it's like, oh my God, just get on with it.
Oh man!
Again, that one bit from Wild Bill is like, and now I must lay here and die.
Right,
like that now.
Wild Bill is absolutely the one that takes center stage when he has a monologue. I'm paying attention.
Yeah,
because he's and sometimes it may not even be that. It's just a few moments, talking alone with the character. I'm like, what knowledge, what preachy knowledge is Wild Bill going to impart here?
Well,
because
he's
it would
also
be fun.
on a redemption tour of his own.
Right.
He we talked about this in the first season where he pulled a Ric Flair and pulled his dick out on an airplane.
With
He had his own-
the new championship belt
Yeah,
that he hated.
He had a plane ride. He had a plane ride from hell of his own.
Uh-huh.
And so now he's gone all the way back to the Indies, and he's just like, I just want, I'm not going to be around forever. He has a really great. So he's doing a podcast with the Lucha guy, and they go to a convention, and he's talking to this one wrestler.
Oh man,
and
This is
basically
some
he was
stuff.
like, is there life after wrestling? There is, if you would like there to be. But if you're just going to be a wrestler for the rest of your life, you're going to wrestle till you die, probably lonely, more or less is what it said.
That was a rough watch
Mhm.
because you start to see how Wild Bill, he longs for that glory to remain, and he does not want to be an older wrestler. He probably could sense that, but by God, he's not going to let go quiet into that night in any way.
Mhm.
But then you start to see his friends that he gets together with, and the one guy has suffered some type of brain injury and has brain damages and is walking around in a daze. And his friends are just like, dude, you've got to appreciate and understand that what you're doing here doesn't last forever, and your body doesn't last forever.
Right.
But yeah, that was some real sobering stuff when he got together, and he couldn't. I think he gets angry with them because of some of the stuff that they were saying, even though everything that they were saying was quite literally.
It is hard to ask the mirror who's the fairest of them all, and the mirror
Right.
says, not you.
Yeah. Yeah. And he couldn't handle that. And
no.
So yeah, and he's just started acting like, and his way of coping with that is acting like a jerk sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel for Wild Bill, but yeah, you're right. He is on a redemption arc of his own.
Mm-hmm.
He's fallen from grace, and the way that he sees that personally for himself, I think, is to get involved with this DWL and try and make them successful.
Bring up the next generation of guys. Like CM Punk went to AEW because he wanted to make guys like MJF and Darby Allin.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you do. That's what you're supposed to do as the elder statesman. The older guys put you over. You get over. You put over the younger generation. That's the way this goes.
Right.
And so that's what he's there for. He's like, I was successful. I'm just kind of a shitty person. So I'm trying to be better now because I don't want to have the lonely grave of Scrooge, of Ebenezer Scrooge. Where I die and there's no one there to mourn me, and what was the point of any of this? Right. So, having had his Ghost of Christmas Future moment, in the first season, he's now in the second season doing the good work of trying to be better, which is great. He's, Chris Bauer is an awesome character.
He was
awesome
made for this role. It's so funny because, in The Wire, not Treme, help me out here. The Deuce.
Yeah.
Both of those series, I did not expect him to come out of those two with this range of acting.
We need a Hulk Hogan, Terry Funk, Ric Flair character. Get the fat guy, the fat dock worker from season 2 of The Wire.
I was going through, and he nailed it perfectly. I was going through some research, prior to the podcast, and somebody asked him, like, what was it like to shit your pants in the ring? And he was like, well, Yale didn't teach me this. And
it's a good line.
Yeah, it was.
I want to talk really quick about the wife, because I don't know if you've been on a podcast with me before. This might be the first time for you, Jesse, but I tend to maybe be a little negative about women, a little misogynistic. I may have brought up something in the past called the Adrian scale.
Oh my.
Just the worst wives ever club.
Right.
And I have to say, Jack's wife, who is played by
the beautiful.
The beautiful Allison Luff. She plays Stacey Spade. I was on her side for the most part.
Oh yeah.
The only thing I didn't like that she did, and she suffers for it, is she lies to the kid and keeps the kid away from Jack.
Okay. All right.
Not great. Women should not
keep
from their parents.
And the good thing, okay, the good thing is that that's one thing about this series is that nobody is perfect
No.
in this series. People make mistakes. Even the
Mhm.
wife here makes a mistake of doing what she did, and she realizes that this isn't working. I should not be keeping my son from
Right. Well,
his
the son
father.
shames her basically when
Mm,
when he figures it out, as young as he is. But other than that, I think I'm not willing to go to hell with you is a really good reason for splitting up. You
sure.
know,
And then proceeds to go to then proceeds to be like, okay, well, since let me be part of this business, and then
yeah.
starts to realize that oh boy.
What a tangled web this is. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that's the way they wrote it, where she's like, I missed you because you were away all the time doing wrestling stuff. So this is the family business, and I'm gonna say something. It's gonna sound weird. Just go with it.
Okay.
Um, I think the biggest, I think in a marriage, the biggest thing you can do for your partner is to support them in the way that they will feel and need to be supported. Supporting them in the way that you think they need to be supported isn't particularly helpful, but but kind of checking in with your spouse, your partner, and hearing their needs, them being brave enough to express their needs as part of communication, and then you supporting them in the way that they feel supported and need to be supported is probably the best thing you can do to make a marriage last.
Man, is it difficult though.
Yeah.
It is difficult to do that. I mean, my wife and I have been together for whew, we started dating in 92 and we got married in 98.
Mhm.
So, it's not like we nailed that down easily.
Mhm.
That's something that every day I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I'm hearing this and I'm thinking this, but what actually is it that she's trying to tell me or that she
Right.
needs? Or do I need to I need to try and understand that. So that is a working working progress for a lot of couples, even at 30 plus years of marriage or whatever,
Right.
So it's always something new every day.
So her way of supporting him is being a part of the business. Just like, okay, well, I didn't like that the business took you away, so now I'll just come be part of the business.
Right.
And he mostly accepts that she's there, and it's working well until she starts to see some shady shit going on, and it turns out it's a lot of like loopholes in tax law having to do with farming, stuff like that. Like it's nothing tremendously bad, but she makes a point of Jack of saying, if we're like, who's gonna buy us if we're in this much fucking debt?
You're right.
We have this much debt, like we're not worth the purchase. Like, what are we supposed to do here?
I have a feeling some of this, provided a season 3 would have happened, I have a feeling a lot of this
Yeah,
shady stuff that was
they
going on
clearly
was
wrote this for a third season.
yeah, a lot of the shady stuff that was going on would definitely have probably come up during the purchase.
Yeah.
Or during the deal that they would have made with the streaming service, and they would have had to figure out a way to get it right, because there was,
Mhm.
I just watched the final episode again prior to coming on here,
Mhm.
and Stacy's out there loading the bankers boxes that were in the basement of the Duffy Dome into
Mhm.
her trunk, and she looks over at Willie and says, "What's in these boxes?" She's like, "I think we covered that already." She's like, "All right, I'll find out myself." And I don't think, you don't get much of an answer as to what's in those boxes. But like you said, yeah, they're doing tax loopholes and stuff like that just to keep the Duffy Dome alive, because this
Right.
thing has been on the brink of bankruptcy probably,
Yeah.
for a while. And
And
Jack's
let's be clear,
father,
fucking independent wrestling is not exactly a get rich quick
oh
scheme.
no, it is not. It
You
is
know,
not.
a lot of promotions are paying people in fucking sandwiches.
Our local promotion here, I think, ran off of a nonprofit type
Mhm.
of method or whatever, some type of way of bringing that in with the Humane Society in order to pull these people in and do a show and also donate money,
Right.
because they knew, I'm sure that there was probably a little bit of money made, but they knew what you're not going to be just bringing in bank unless you're really, really good. That's one of the probably the biggest things that has me, wondering about the state of this Duffy Wrestling League. I'm like, how in the world is it still going today?
Mhm.
Um, I was really, that was probably one of the hardest pills to swallow when I first started the series. Like, man,
Dude,
this thing should have shut down.
right.
It would have been
Well,
shut down in today's wrestling. Anyway,
Jim
go ahead.
Cornette was talking about like currently the number 2 promotion in the world, All Elite Wrestling. Like
He
is-
loves him. He loves him.
No, he doesn't. That's a lie.
Oh, wait a
that's a
second.
goddamn lie.
I have heard the Cult of Cornette. I have heard the drive-through. Go ahead.
My only point is he's talked about how AEW is not doing well, and it basically only survives because it's Tony Khan, whose father owns, I believe, the Jacksonville Jaguars, among other things. It's basically like his vanity project, but it's not making money from the way he tells it. Like they're booking buildings and only like half filling them, maybe. Like it's not a business model that's sustainable.
For business model.
The WWE, having recognized that the tide was turning with live events and things like that, basically did what a lot of. I was actually, my kids and I were talking about this tonight. We were talking about the Christmas Day games that aired on Netflix, which were clearly produced by CBS Sports, because the entire production looked like a CBS football game. But it was distributed by Netflix in like a carve-out deal. Because Netflix is now trying to do live sports, like they just did Tyson versus Logan Paul.
It's interesting. We're talking this, by the way, because next week, is it next week or 2 weeks from now, is when Raw's going to be debuting on Netflix?
Yeah, Raw's on Netflix.
Yeah.
So the WWE a ways back, and the UFC also figured this out, is that if nobody shows up to your events, and the only way to make money is through television rights. And you got to make yourself you got to make your product valuable enough so that the Netflixes and Amazons and Disneys of the world, because Disney owns ESPN, are willing to pay an arm and a leg to distribute your product. So now WWE doesn't care as much if the Nassau Coliseum's only half full on a house show. Who gives a fuck? They get paid because now it's going to be Netflix, but it was the USA Network, which is Viacom. No, sorry, which is Universal. It's a company that owns fucking NBC, and NBC has a streamer and Peacock, and for like how long now? They dumped their, in the United States at least, not in the rest of the world, but in the United States they dumped their own private streamer because they threw the entire network onto Peacock, which is NBC's dedicated streamer. So all of that to say, like the show did a halfway decent job of kind of addressing that, where like they set up that neither Florida nor Georgia have the world's most richest, Florida more so than Georgia, but they're both looking for a way to make money. And then you have this company that's a streamer looking for content, cheap content. And the guy makes a point of saying, hey, which cheap content that people are actually willing to watch and we'll engage with our streamer? Wrestling. And there's something going on between Georgia and Florida that's worth looking into. And so that's a big part of the season. And
it's not like, it's funny because both of those people, they're not wrestling fans. It doesn't seem. I mean, both of them, they don't know anything about wrestling. They're just there to try and make money for their streaming network.
Right.
And then, of course, they get invited. I think the guy sees what Florida is doing, I think, at one point or something, and Georgia's or Duffy. And then the final episode is getting her there, the main person that's going to be making the decision to watch.
Every time they
Armageddon.
Yes, every time they cut to her and there was stuff happening with the wrestlers in the crowd, and her reaction was, "Whoo, I'm in danger!" Like, it was good shit. And it was really believable, too, because, like, the magic of watching wrestling is when you think it's just the dumbest shit ever, and then when you're a part of it, you're like, oh my god, I'm swept away by the fantasy and majesty of it all.
Yeah, that's why for the longest time I mentioned our local promotion. I became the sign guy at our promotion. I would make the signs up, and I would go out, and I would get front row tickets for me, my wife, and my daughter, because it made us kind of feel like a part of it. And I knew a lot about wrestling. Kira didn't. She may have watched a little bit of wrestling in just by contact in the living room while I was watching Raw or something like that. But yeah, it was fun to watch my wife and my daughter get caught up in some of the crazy action that was happening. And it's fun to watch, that happen. And that's what kind of draws the fans in there. So
I took Melissa to an independent show before a lot of those guys came back. So this is many moons ago. But whatever the indie league that the WWE ended up absorbing, where Drew McIntyre was there, Matt Riddle was there for a cup of coffee. I brought her to one of those shows in Ybor. And again, she's not like an independent wrestling fan. She's not really a wrestling fan. She watched it because her brother did. And then she watched it because I did. But there was something about being there live. And she was really into it. I brought her and the kids when they were younger to NXT house shows, which basically are glorified indie. And we had the time of our lives. I mean, like, if I make them, they'll watch wrestling, my kids. But do they necessarily enjoy it? I mean, Jonas likes to watch guys fall on their head. But, and Lily will get into the women's matches. Like, I made them watch Survivor Series, and they got as far as the women's war games before they were both like, all right, well, that's great. And we're out and we're done here. But if I take them to a live show, they're into it. Like, Jonas asked me again to bring them to a midget wrestling show. I brought them to one in the fall of 2022. They loved it. They had the time of their life. They were hooting and hollering because, again, it's like being at a concert.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said about the intimacy of an independent wrestling live event as well. Because I mean, I think I've told the story before where I took my daughter to go watch Raw one night up in Columbus, and then later that week we went and watched our local wrestling promotion, I believe it was, or maybe went to Jackson. But either way, my daughter fell asleep at Raw, and when she was at the independent league, when we was watching. She was fine. She had a blast. It was, it was a great time.
So I brought them to the Royal Rumble in Orlando, the one where Roman Reigns was number one and had to go through the entire Rumble, the Triple H one. But that was also the one where AJ Styles debuted. And by the end of that show, both kids were napping on the floor. In our box seats this is Richie Rich uncle gave us. Anyway, so back to it. Like. Nobody in this season is particularly fucking evil, I've noticed.
Right.
That's the weirdest thing about like how this season was written, where the only one that even comes close is Mary McCormick's character. And Willie Day. That's
just because she's not a good wife.
She's a bag of shit as a wife and a mom.
She is not good. And I think there's a lot there to be explored too, because she's very much wrapped up into her career, and I think she has a lot of resentment for what's happened.
They did the flashback episode where Tom goes to have the interview with. Also, I thought this was the dumbest thing ever. Why would he interview with Ted Turner? Like that interview should have been with Eric Bischoff. But
right.
Whatever.
My guess is they couldn't. If you're going to name a name.
Mm-hmm.
You drop Ted Turner's name. If you're not a wrestling fan, you're not going to know who Eric Bischoff is. Plus, they probably didn't want to bring Eric Bischoff up. That's my guess, but whatever.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, I thought like the whole episode is they keep calling him to Turner's headquarters in Georgia, which I'm fine with because local. And then Ted Turner like big times him and makes him just sit there, and then they send him home, and they do this another time, and finally he like snaps in the office, and that's the end of it. So Chris Bauer's character is the one that ends up going to WCW. Tom doesn't, so it's another dream unfulfilled. And Mary McCormick's character Willie kind of hitched her wagon to Tom, and Tom never went anywhere. So she's bitter and she's angry, and she's invested her everything into this. And not only does Tom not like let her run things, but now neither does Jack. Mm-hmm. And so she's just she feels like she's just spinning her wheels, and she's projecting all of this and taking it all out on her family. And she's the closest as awful as any character is in this show.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, watching her like deal with her daughter, I think was probably one of the most. That was probably one of the most unpleasant parts.
Fucking Gully as a dad is awesome, especially by
comparison. I know, like
he's so nice to his daughter.
And he's supportive. He's like, oh yeah, and he brings her into the business. He's like, that's a great idea. Make me a mixtape. Let's get down. And again, Gully is like,
they really did make him like Paul Heyman, but in all the good ways. Like, have you ever heard Paul Heyman talk? He's like, where I get my ideas from? I talk to my children.
That's crazy.
What are they into? And like, I'm like right there with him. Like, you know how many times I've turned to my kids and be like, is this popular? Like, what is happening here? Like, we were talking about just really quickly. There was a conversation after the Sonic review about when's the next big hit animated feature. And I kind of went through the list. I was like, I said the only thing coming up in the next quarter is Dogman. And both my kids were like, they made that movie well after
man.
anyone who read Dogman would go to see this movie. Like that.
Yeah.
Anyone who read the Dogman books apparently has now grown up into not wanting to go see a Dogman movie. They're like, they don't think it's going to do well.
They don't think it's going to do well. I'm very surprised. I bet you if I brought my 11-year-old down here and said Dogman's going to be a movie, is it live? You said it's animated?
Yeah.
Oh, it'll be watched. I don't think it will be going to the theaters, but it'll be watched, guaranteed.
It's a theatrical exhibition, so maybe when it comes out of the theaters, people will sit and watch it on streaming like they do everything
Dude,
else.
it is I'm pretty certain, talking to the local comic shop down here, it is still the most sold comic, if you can call it that, because that's what everybody. And granted, your kids may have grown out of it by now, but I think a lot of kids. Matter of fact, I think my coworker was just asking me, like, my son keeps asking about some comic book, and I'm like, oh, is it Spider-Man? Is it Superman? Is it Dogman? What is that? I'm like,
funny. All right. So the last part of the podcast, and then we're gonna get into plugs because I got a hard at it at 10:30. I have a session to do at 11. So.
Oh, got you. Sorry.
Let's talk about that ending. So,
oh boy.
Okay, so they've written everything is pretty much this, almost to the point where there's no tension in the show. Everything is just working. The most tense thing that fucking happens is they set up a meet and greet for the streamers, and they don't show because they stay at Gully's party.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of like tension of will Crystal stay with Georgia, or will she go to Florida?
Mm-hmm.
She stays in Georgia. There's a romance between her and what's his face?
Bobby Pin.
And Bobby Pin's just the most awesome guy ever. And
Dude,
they're a
do not separate these two.
Yeah, it's like
do not.
There's no tension. It's like will they, won't they? They do, and it's great.
Yeah,
Moving
fantastic.
On.
Right.
Yeah, there's no tension anymore between the brothers. Everything there is working. The only thing with the wife and Willie is finally Willie just comes clean and be like, yeah, we take advantage of loopholes in the farming laws. That's how we get by.
Ace becoming a male nurse. That really blew my mind.
Oh, like, yeah, him getting shit thrown him on was fucking hilarious.
You're the one that put shit in my pants. And I'm like, what's going on here? And
yeah, well, having worked with psych patients for the past golly knows how many years, I was like, that's familiar.
Oh man.
Sorry, washed my mouth vigorously. Anyway. So that's it. Everything is sort of coming to this one. Everything is leading up to this show. And
Armageddon.
And they actually show you a lot of the wrestling. Like that's the weird thing about heels is a lot of shows of like this takes you into the inner world of this or that, but they don't always show you a lot of that this or that. It's a lot of the drama behind the scenes. It's a lot of characters talking to each other. Where heels goes out of its way to show you as much wrestling as possible. So the whole like series finale, as it turns out, because much like the Glade, just fucking ends on a cliffhanger. But yeah, so the series finale, episode 8, is almost entirely the Harmageddon show, right? And the tension of the episode is, will Jack stay on script or not? And it's so funny because he doesn't, and then there's Rooster going.
Well, the thing is that I don't know. There, just like you said, there's tension, but I feel like Jack is intent on making the right decision in order to save his wrestling promotion. Right. And things go very, very awry.
In a previous episode, there's a flashback to him trying to execute a shooting star press. And for those of you who don't watch wrestling, a shooting star press is you're facing the ring and you do I don't even know how to describe it, but like a flip to where your legs are going to go over your head and then you're going to land on your belly. Yeah, it's a backflip, but you're facing the ring when you do it.
Okay.
So a backflip, a moonsault essentially is your back is to the ring and you
just get up and do one.
No. Somebody fucking executed a sliced bread I think it was Crystal who did it. Crystal fucking pulled off sliced bread, if I remember correctly. That's the name of the move. where she basically has the person in in like the rock bottom, but like flips over.
Oh yes, okay, I got you.
Yeah. Which is a fucking awesome move, by the way. Anyway, so he tries to execute a shooting star press. It's not an easy thing to do. Back in the day when Billy Kidman would do them, it was a fucking thing of beauty.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
It's done more often than not now, but kind of like a Canadian destroyer. It used to be when Petey Williams did it in TNA. It was like, oh my god, he killed him. Now the people greet each other with Canadian destroyers. Like, how do you do? I fucking Canadian destroyer to my mailbox to go get my mail, and Canadian destroyer back.
Just Canadian destroyer the kids all the way to the mailbox.
Yeah. It's how I show my children love. I give them a Canadian destroyer.
Things sure have changed.
Yeah. So anyway, so the way it's supposed to happen is the way Gully's promotion is supposed to go over in the end. But the way they save face is that Jack turns on the DWL and then he wrestles his brother, and then I guess he's supposed to go over.
Yeah, the condemned has to be laying in the middle of the ring crying is what I think Gully tells him when they're signing that contract.
But instead, he in order to make amends to his brother and right the wrong from the first season, he decides he's going to hit a shooting star press, and then and then he's not going to be able to get up, and then his brother will get up and he wins the match and fuck Gully. Who cares?
It's supposed to be Jack's supposed to get up. That's a last man standing match.
Yeah.
The written script was Jack's supposed to get up and while the condemned continues to lay there. Right. Problem is, it doesn't go that way.
No, he breaks his back, essentially.
Which, first off, he hit the shooting star press. Has anybody ever hit the shooting star press and broke their back at the same time?
Again, I don't even know how you would fucking do that. Because the whole thing with the shooting star press is everything that is effective about it. So Brock Lesnar hit a shooting star press. And Brock Lesnar's shooting star press was the weirdest one ever because he did it at like a right angle. So a shooting star press, if here's the ring, you go whoopsie-doo, and then you land in the center of the ring. It's no big deal. You actually might do better dragging the guy. Like Billy Kidman did it pretty close to the corner when he did it. Because you're not going to get a lot of hang time on a shooting star press.
No.
His flip was real pretty, but he didn't go very far in the ring.
Right.
Brock Lesnar had fucking Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 19 dead goddamn center. And he was like a cartoon character. Jumps dead center and shooting star press and came down in the middle of the ring and on his fucking head.
On his fucking head.
Yeah, he did not know where the hell he was, and I think he almost broke his neck doing it. I want to say he injured himself, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been. No. So Jack doesn't do that though. Jack hit the shooting star press.
He hits it,
and then and essentially what they're saying to you is that the impact of him flipping was so hard he fucking gave himself a stinger or broke his back or something. He can't feel his legs. Is the sum total of it.
He's not getting up.
Yeah, so everyone's like, "Get up," and then even his brother is just like, I don't need to win. You've done enough for me, brother. It's fine. He was like, "Great, get up anyway. I can't move."
Man.
And then the wife runs over. He was like, "I can't feel my legs," and he cries. And then we're out. You hear Gully going, "I will kill you, motherfucker," and that is the end of it. The only other detail about that was the streamers had said they were going to merge the two companies.
Yeah,
and they weren't going to tell them until they signed a contract, which I don't think is legal. I don't think you can. I mean, I guess maybe you can once you own it. You can do whatever you fucking want with it.
Yeah, you just tell them, okay, you guys work together or you're both gone.
Well, again, I was about to say I don't think that's legal, but no, because now I'm thinking about Wall Street and people buy companies and dissolve them all the time.
Right.
Right. They Disney bought Fox. You'll notice Fox isn't a real company anymore. It's a studio brand. You know, this is branded Disney. This is branded 20th Century. Doesn't really matter. So I take it back. They absolutely could have, and that was the plan. Was that they were going to dissolve the DWL and make it a part of Florida, or just call the whole thing something new. But either way, that was the plan. And then that was the end of the series because it was canceled. And Netflix
mean,
has said that it might renew it if enough people watch it, but I mean, it was 2023. It's almost 2025.
well, okay. So I thought about this, and
Mhm.
I think a lot of the argument to possibly, I mean, nothing's been said about them wanting to do that. Which, by the way, it got canceled within 10 days after the second season ended.
Right.
So it was pretty quick. It was a pretty quick
Right.
decision.
But it would initially debuted on Starz, and nobody watched Starz, which is like half the
Right.
problem.
Right. It was low viewership.
Mhm.
So, I mean, like I said, Netflix is kind of leaning into wrestling now.
Right.
And I think that if there is life for this, then it's going to be, they may see how Raw performs on Netflix
Mhm.
and think, okay, there is
There's a better
possible.
model. There's a better model. Lucifer and Cobra Kai. Lucifer started out on terrestrial Fox and either got canceled or whatever happened, it got acquired by Netflix, and then Netflix continued it until the end. The last like season and a half. Cobra Kai started out on YouTube Red, which no longer exists.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Right. And then Netflix purchased Cobra Kai, and it's in its like 88th season now, and it's
it's not slowing down.
This upcoming the last season 6, I believe, is what we're up to in actuality. But they broke season 6 into 5 episode parts.
That's going to be the final season, right?
You're right. Yeah. So this basically season 6 is 15 episodes, and the last 5 are coming up soon. Because I know that because I have it scheduled with Pat, assuming he shows up to it. You might need to be on deck for me, Jesse.
I'm watching that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to send you the date for Cobra Kai because you might need to
just in case. All right.
Be Pat's stand-in. But yeah. I mean, Netflix has a habit, and I just gave 2 examples of taking a series which died wherever it originally. Oh, another one is You.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the one that Pat and Jason were all obsessed over. Another one that we've reviewed on here. That started off on A&E, I think.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I don't.
It seems really mature for that.
Hang on.
I mean, I could be wrong, but my wife is in the process of watching that show. I haven't watched any of it, but yeah, I mean, I know
fucking use fucking great. It's such a soap. It's a ridiculously soapy drama. You started off Lifetime. I had it.
Lifetime.
Yeah, it started off on
Well,
Lifetime.
no wonder my wife likes it.
Yeah. Lifetime for women who want to murder their husbands. So
Snapped.
Yeah, so Lifetime had it from November 2018, and then Netflix picked it up in 2019. So from season 2 on,
okay.
If I'm looking at this, if reading this correctly, they've continued, and now that's going into its 5th season, and it's all been on Netflix. So the point of this whole thing being, does heels have a chance of coming back? Maybe. But I think that's going to be entirely. You still with me, Jesse?
I'm here. I don't know what's going on with my camera.
Okay. I was going to make sure you weren't frozen or anything. I wasn't talking to fucking dead air. Just the last bit of this, and then we'll start to get out of here. If there's enough engagement with heels since it's been airing on Netflix, then maybe we'll see a 3rd season. But again, the other part of this is Stephen Amell is doing LA Suits.
He's already kind of involved in something different.
Alexander Ludwig, let's see what he's doing. He plays Ace. He just this year he was on something called Earth Abides. I don't know what
Earth Abides.
But he was in 6 episodes and he was a main role.
Okay.
He was in Bad Boys Right. Oh, that's him in Bad Boys Right or Die. Okay. And he's got a movie coming up called Shiver. He was in The Covenant before that. He was in National Champions. So yeah, he's busy. He's got shit to do. Let's see. Kelly Berglund. What's she up to?
This felt like. I mean, I don't know if she's been in other stuff, but this is the first time I've ever seen her.
Oh, she's coming. She's going to be in something this year, I think, called Queen of the Ring. It's a biographical sports drama.
Wow.
It's about Mildred. Oh my God, it's about Mildred Burke.
Mildred Burke, help me out. Remind me.
Old as shit professional wrestler. She's like the professional wrestler besides fucking
Moolah.
Yeah.
So she's already typecast into some kind of like. Well, wait a second. I shouldn't say
Let's
that.
put it this way. There's a character in the show who's playing Mae Young.
The younger version. She's probably still like really old. What was she? Was she previously a wrestler that turned actor?
Let's see.
I mean, I guess they were.
Kelly Berglund was known for playing Bree Davenport in Disney XD Lab Rats and Lab Rats Elite Force.
A negative.
She was in the movie How to Build a Better Boy.
Don't know that one.
She's a character in something called Now Apocalypse. And then she's been in heel. So no, she's not been typecasted as a wrestler.
Okay.
But I would imagine that's how she got this gig in Queen of the Ring. Like, hey,
that's interesting.
You hot chicks who can wrestle and act. Well, I'm those things.
Both of those, yes.
Yeah.
She is.
All right. So what did you think of the finale? And then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, hey, like I said, I like to see our characters. I mean, really, just kind of like you were saying, everything was going great. And then we have this tragedy that befalls our main character, Jack Spade.
It only stuck to the script.
Yeah. It's a lot of, there's definitely this cliffhanger element sucks because you want to see what's going to happen. The stuff with their father, even though they're doing well, is not resolved because what happens as Jack is laying in the ring, trying to get his legs to move. As he turns over and looks over into the audience, he sees his dad sitting there clapping and saying, I told you, you fucking idiot.
Yep.
I told you.
Yeah.
Way to go. You screwed it up again.
So like my dad.
Way to go on that math test, Mark.
Yep. Good job for getting third degree burns from being out in the sun all day, you idiot. Slow clap.
Anyway, so yeah, I hate the fact that we don't have a season 3. I really enjoyed enjoying both of these seasons practically back to back, and the little time that I did, I really had a great time. I really did, and I think as far as season 2 overall goes, I'm coming in here as a wrestling fan. I have my wife here who knows enough about wrestling, to be dangerous, but she's there for the drama.
Yeah.
And they merge those two quite well.
It is an extreme, it's an extremely well written show. I hate the fact that it was on a network nobody watches. It's about a subject that doesn't immediately appeal to everybody. Like, we tend to forget, being wrestling fans, that wrestling by and large doesn't have the appeal wrestling fans think it does.
Right.
Or it would do much better. You know what has the appeal people think it does? Soccer. Okay? It's watched by everyone around the world, everywhere, and there's a zillion leagues.
Yeah.
Okay, you thought I was going to say football, but football is popular in America, and it's the most popular sport in America. It's not as much popular in the rest of the world. Soccer is. It's the most popular sport on earth.
Right.
And when you think about like soccer numbers, for like Netflix, so I was listening to one of my entertainment podcasts, and they were just like, "Oh, Netflix is really beefing up their streaming game by airing women's FIFA."
And they were serious.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Again, soccer, football, is the most popular sport on earth, and wrestling can't even compete by comparison.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Wrestling isn't popular. The WWE is popular.
That's right.
And
That's
people who watch Jim Cornette, this will be the last thing I say. Jim Cornette would talk about like the Wednesday night war between WWE and AEW. And he was like, when the original Monday Night War happened, it was because the world really was watching. And it was they extended their base of people beyond wrestling fans because that wasn't sustainable with wrestling fans only. When the Wednesday Night War happened, they split the wrestling base and nobody else.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else. the war between Dynamite and NXT did not draw people from out of the wrestling market the way Raw versus Nitro did. Like when you and I were watching wrestling in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was, it was a happening. People who didn't watch wrestling were into it. Like how many guys did you go to school with that were not wrestling fans? Were just like DTA motherfucker, for life, like whatever. I did a Steve Austin and an NWO thing. Like how many fucking posers had NWO shirts?
Oh yeah.
Or had Austin 316 shirts?
It was the counterculture.
Yeah, it was the counterculture. And then when it died, those people left and never came back. Or maybe they watch now because they've got kids that watch. Like, oh yeah, I remember this. I remember The Rock versus Austin. I remember Austin versus McMahon, and they're like 40, and they've got kids.
I mean, you got to look at, we as wrestling fans have aged into a demographic where we're like, give us more documentaries about all the crazy shit that happened.
Let me tell you how my YouTube watching has recently been just like wrestling documentaries.
Oh yeah, dude. Jim Cornette is fun to listen to because he has all that history that he talks about. He's a historian, and when you're listening to Eric Bischoff talk about some of the shit that he went through, we just want to hear all those crazy facts that happened during that crazy time.
Yeah, that's why fucking what's his name? Brother Love.
Bruce Pritchard.
Yeah, that's why Pritchard's podcast was as popular as it was before he went back to the WWE and couldn't talk about shit anymore.
Right.
And then the lies started up again. So I love the show. What I was trying to get at was it's an extremely niche show, but it's one of the more well-written shows on TV. It doesn't get the attention that I think it deserves because somebody asked me tonight, like, what are you talking about tonight on your podcast? I'm like, oh, heels. They're like, what's that? I'm like, it's a wrestling show on Starz. What's that? I'm like, all right. 2 or 3, what's that? And that's it. That's the end of the discussion.
Let's move on.
Yeah. All right. So that's it. That's unless you got anything else.
No, man. I'm glad I got a chance to talk about it. I'm glad we got to resurrect it.
Yeah.
I'd love to be here in about 2 years and talk about season 3 that we did not think was going to happen.
Give me at least just tell me what happens with Jack. That's the last thing I'll say. Like, I generally don't care if a show gets canceled. I could give a fuck less. Like, I got so much other shit going on in my life, both real and this, that like, if a show ends, good. One less thing for me to talk about. This one, I was legitimately sad it was over. I want more heels.
What we need, put this out there in the universe, is if we're not getting season 3, we need a heels comic. So give us season 3 in the comic book form, and I guess we'll have to do it.
Comic book, you nerd. But I'm gonna raise
Mark could be on to talk about it. Don't let him fucking kid you, okay?
You're not wrong. Can we at least get like a straight to Netflix movie?
Okay, all right. So you want to
resolve this? Just
2 hours?
Yeah, I need that, and I need the Glades. I need to know who shot who shot the sheriff.
I want backstory on the Hole. Was that his name? The Hole? Was that his name? The wrestler that was called the Hole for Florida Dystopia?
Oh,
I'll send you a picture.
The one who looked like the 5th member of Demolition.
Yes. Give me a backstory issue for him.
I see enough people who look like the Hole at BDSM night. I don't need to see another, and I don't need a backstory on one of the fucking extras from Mad Max 2.
Oh man, fun
fucking
stuff.
Lord
fun
Humongous
stuff.
over there. All right, that's it. That's our review of Heels. This past Monday, before all the Christmas stuff happened, we did a review of Sonic the Hedgehog. My kids and I did a commentary track for The Merry Gentleman. It was PG. I assure you it was PG. Sunday, I'll be at Disney. Monday is the last Damn You Hollywood review of the year. It is Mufasa, the Lion King. But wait, there's more. We're doing a second Damn You Hollywood. No movie review this time. It's me. It's myself, Robert, and Alexis wormed her way onto the show. Maybe Dorian will be there too. Who knows? But it's our 2024 year-end show and our 2025 preview show. So which means, Jesse, I got to send you another spreadsheet. We're We're gonna look at our top 10, and then we're gonna look at how the studios did, and then we're gonna look at the schedule for next year and hammer that out live on the air. Because last year I did that with Robert off air, and it took an hour. And I'm like, we might as well have just done this on the podcast. So, because everything was a goddamn conversation with him. So that's what I got going on next week. That's what's happening next week. The beginning of the year, we're kicking things off with Monday, January 6th, when all the kids go back to school. We will be doing a Damn You Hollywood for Nosferatu, which came out on Christmas Day. And then I'll be back with another TV party. It'll be myself and David Wright. We'll be talking Star Trek Lower Decks, the final season of that, which is season 5. That's what I got going on. Jesse, what's going on in your world?
Yep. Oh my goodness. Well, this past Monday is our show that me and you did on City of Bane that aired on the Source Material Comics podcast. So folks, if you have the opportunity, go and check out the Source Material Comics feed. You should be able to punch that into any podcatcher out there and subscribe. We talk about comics of any era on the Source Material Comics podcast. We also have the Unspoken Issues podcast, which focuses solely on 90s comics. And the previous week we talked about Gen 13. So if you were around to read some stuff about Caitlin Fairchild and Burnout, I think Grunge, you'll probably dig that as well. And then of course, Evan Bevins and myself get together once a month and we talk Marvel Snap. If you play the Marvel Snap mobile card game, you may enjoy that. There's about 4 20-minute episodes that get released every month. And I think that is about all we got.
All right. Let's see. When's the next time we and you are doing stuff? We've got a sessions, you and I, coming up. We're going to be doing Pelennor Fields Forever.
Oh, yes.
much like my incessant referencing of The Wire, I also incessantly reference Lord of the Rings. So we're going to do a song about it. So that'll be Sessions, track 5 for Radulich Broadcasting Network, the album. That's Sunday, January 19th. Are you on anything else in January? Oh, yes. We're doing a new TV show. We're starting up a new one. It'll be The West Wing. It'll be me, you, and Andrew, allegedly.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's a tall order because this was 8 episodes. I think Wu-Tang Clan would be 10. A lot of the David Simon stuff was around 10 episodes. It's 22 episodes per season for The West Wing. When did this start? In the late 90s? Yeah.
Yeah, TV was different back then.
It certainly was, Holly. But I love Andrew. Andrew has been a loyal friend and fan of the Radulich Broadcasting Network. And so
absolutely.
He asked for this 2 years ago. I think in the middle of the David Simon stuff, he's like, put me on the calendar for 2025. So yeah, it was 2023 when he asked. He's like, I want to do The West Wing with you and Jesse because we all know how much Jesse loves politics.
Can't wait. I just can't wait.
I want to know more than anything else what Mindy thinks of The West Wing because I know you're gonna make her watch it.
Oh yeah, she'll be watching it with me.
Yeah, so I need kind of like I always talk about my kids and what they think. I want to know what Mindy thinks of The West Wing.
Very good, very good. Okay. We'll definitely let you know.
All right, folks. For the condarned Jesse fucking Starcher, I'm got to do another BetterHelp session. Be well, be safe, and behave.